Larry Bird, the basketball player, I think is a very good example of someone who never did ortho, but just had a slow collapse, a natural one, but continued pushing his body. So he ended up aging faster than he would have. I'm going to tell his story today because I think there's some things we can take out of it and learn. So, a little bit of context. I'm, a child of the 80s, grew up in New York. I was a big Knicks fan growing up. So I was following the Knicks when I was a young teenager. This is the 90s. And, those are the days of like Patrick Ewing and John Starks and Charles Oakley. And at that time, Larry Bird was still playing, right? I think I caught the tail end of his career. There was Jordan, there was Bird. Jordan was still very much in his prime. Bird was in his last years. And he didn't officially retire until 1992. So I think I caught kind of the last few years of his career, and he was still a great player. But you can tell like he moved, he didn't move like a fast athlete like a Michael Jordan. And back then he had a lot of he was already having a number of health issues and he was forcing himself to play. He's been in this slow decline. I think he had his first injury around 1985 when he first started having some back issues. And now, it's 2025, so 40 years later, and, the guy's still got nothing. He's still functioning, right? So it's been like a slow collapse for Larry. But you can tell, very much like he's visibly aged quite a bit. When you compare his story to, orthodontic cases, because Larry never did orthodontics, right? So he's now 68 years old, and you see a lot of people younger than him, right? And I've done stories on some folks like Lil Wayne and Brett Favre and Wendy Williams who have more neurological issues and even diseases now, and they're a lot younger, and they even look less aged than Larry, but they have these more serious health issues, right? And that's one of the key things that I want to bring out today is that when you allow the body to collapse on its own, the way it's done for Larry, even though he pushed himself harder, you will, for the most part, stay disease-free, at least serious disease, in my experience, right? And the reason for that is because the body is very smart at keeping us alive. So it keeps compensating. So you may not look good, right? And Larry probably hasn't looked good for many years, but he's still relatively, functionally healthy. Whereas a lot of these other people that did ortho, when you do ortho, you basically negate the body's ability to compensate the way it normally does. And therefore it goes into a much more rapid collapse cycle, which can very much impact the way you function. So, and the other point I want to bring out is like how much Larry pushed himself to kind of force himself to compete at a high level, but forcing his body to compensate a lot. And I think he had back issues early on in his career in the mid 80s, right? And he was still playing, and his last career year was the 1991-1992 season. So this is like 10 plus years after he first started having back issues in the NBA, where you're competing against the best athletes in the world, and it's very strenuous on the body. And even in his 91-92 season, he was getting 20 points per game, and he played 45 games and 10 rebounds per game and 7 assists. So and those are like almost all-star numbers, despite being in a very damaged body in his last year of his career. And that just, and he was constantly getting injured. And it just goes how much he forced himself mentally to kind of continue to play and, his love for the game. And one thing he was quoted as saying was every time I play, I was wondering if I was going to be in a wheelchair, right? And we kind of like, back in the day, like that was revered, like you should continue to do that. And now I think, we understand the body a little bit better, but like you don't see people forcing themselves to just play through injury like that the way it used to. And now, so like I saw a picture of Larry in his, early 60s, and like he had no profile. He, completely damaged the neck, but he was still functional. And like you don't usually see an NBA player, especially one that didn't do ortho, have no profile like that, right? And I think it like the fact that his cervical column was so damaged is a testament to his mental will to just keep playing through injury and forcing his body to compensate further and further. But despite that, I think even Larry could recover even now. through these biomechanics. Like, I don't think anything is too far gone. It would take him a long time, but I think he could even play NBA ball again, right? Like, it would probably take 4 or 5 years of solid doing these biomechanics to get back. But it sounds crazy, 60, soon to be 70-year-old guy. But I think in 20, 30 years, like, it's going to sound normal because we're going to understand that age doesn't really mean much and the body can bounce back. You just got to follow these basic principles. Some last closing thoughts is something that I like to bring up to some folks that, are forcing themselves to exercise as they get older. And I think that it's kind of foolish when if you're not doing these biomechanics and you're forcing yourself to exercise and you're able to lock in occlusion, you're just forcing your body to compensate. You're aging yourself faster. And then the only reason I think people don't know that is because, there's all these correlations so that people that are healthier, easier able to do the exercise, and we put them on a pedestal and we say, oh, okay, the people that are really healthy seem to be doing a lot of exercise. And therefore their logical conclusion is I should do a lot of exercise because then I'm going to age really well. Right. But we don't see how that person that exercises a lot would have been if he didn't exercise. Right. Like, I think in a lot of cases, they would have even aged even better. Right. I think in a lot of cases, we don't know what would have been on a human being. And therefore, a lot of what we're concluding is based on correlation, which I think is flawed. And I don't think as you age, especially the more twisted your body becomes, I don't think you should be exercising unless, you're using a mouth guard at night. You're allowing the body to heal and inflate. I think that Larry, now I heard he used to love jogging, I think 5 miles a day. He used to say it even in retirement. Now he can't jog and he walks not very well and he's got all these issues. And I think he did that to himself. Didn't force himself to jog during those years. He'd probably be walking around just fine. Last thing I want to leave you with that is don't take what I say as gospel. Observe, test my theories, and then decide for yourself. Thanks.